Something's happening with the Seahawks that not a lot of people are picking up on, but it could change the entire season. I'm Ethan Carter, longtime fan, a diehard analyst, and you gotta picture this with me, a quarterback who just doesn't miss in practice, two young nose tackles popping up like saviors, a veteran with no timeline to return, a star running back being bubble-wrapped, and roster shuffles that are reshaping the defense. They feel like disconnected pieces, right? But they're revealing this unsettling pattern. You want to see how what we saw in training camp might have been the start of it all? All right, my fellow Seattle Seahawks fan, before we dive into all the details from this Tuesday with the latest on our squad, I gotta ask you for a favor. If you're someone who follows the Seahawks Insider Report and you dig our breakdowns, but you haven't subscribed yet, please, just hit that subscribe button. It's a huge deal for the channel, and it's how we keep this community growing. Thanks a lot, I really appreciate it. Who would have thought a simple Monday practice at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center could give us more answers than a whole damn game? Sam Darnold, the QB that a lot of people are still side-eyeing because of his, rocky past, just went a full week without throwing a single interception. In Clint Kubiak's new system, he looks like he's running the offense with this veteran calm, this confidence of a guy who's finally found a place to just thrive. It's like watching a conductor who, after years of messing up the tempo, finally has the orchestra in the palm of his hand. But while all eyes were on Darnold, something even more intriguing was going down in the defensive trenches. Quinton Bohanna and Brandon Peely, two massive young nose tackles, took advantage of Jonathan Hankins being out to prove they can hold the line against any run. Mike Macdonald praised their dedication, pointing out how they're taking care of their bodies and basically seizing their own destiny. And that's not just coach speak, man. Being a good nose tackle in the NFL is like being a bank vault guard. You don't get the spotlight, but if you fail, the whole treasure is gone. PFF stats show that almost nobody truly stands out at that spot. And the Seahawks have been getting gashed in the run game since 2022, with averages that make any defensive fan just furious. Last year was a nightmare. We started 3-0, but 2 weeks later, our D-line was so banged up we gave up 5.6 yards a carry to Jahmyr Gibbs and 7.2 to Tyrone Tracy in back-to-back games. 2 straight losses that exposed that old wound. Zero depth in the middle of our defense. Now, with Bohanna, 6'4", 327 pounds, and Peely, almost 6'3", 316 pounds, Macdonald has a solid plan B. This keeps guys like Byron Murphy and Jaron Reed, who are supposed to be doing other things, from having to plug holes in the middle. That proper rotation could be the very thing that keeps our defense alive when the inevitable injury bug shows up. And for a team that's always prided itself on being physical, seeing the defense breathe again with specialists in that role, it's almost nostalgic. It brings you back to the glory days of the Legion of Boom, when every position was a fortress. But here's the thing that's nagging me. As promising as this all sounds, it all hinges on one uncomfortable detail. There's no end in sight for Hankins' absence. And when a backbone player like that is gone indefinitely, it changes the whole mental game for everyone around him. So before we start celebrating our newfound depth, we gotta face a tough question. How long is Hankins' shadow going to shape this 2025 defense? Jonathan Hankins' absence isn't just a footnote in training camp anymore, man. It's a gaping hole on the defensive chessboard. The veteran, a cornerstone for the middle of that line, was put on the non-football injury list right at the start of camp with a back issue. And there's the kicker. There's no timeline. Mike Macdonald was blunt about it, saying that setting any dates would be just wishful thinking because any expectation could end in disappointment. Or, best case scenario, a surprise. Hankins knows the system. He knows exactly what to do and doesn't need a ton of reps to be ready. But until that ready finally happens, the team's got to figure it out. It's funny how guys like him, the ones who fly under the media radar, carry such a massive weight on the field. Last year, Hankins started 8 games and finished with 30 tackles, a sack, and even an interception. And that's without being the kind of athlete who lights up the stat sheet. His job is more invisible, but it's vital. Eat up blocks, create lanes for the linebackers to hunt, and anchor that line like a ship in a storm. Without that anchor, the whole thing can get tossed around more than it should. And here's the most delicate part. As much as Bohanna and Peely are stepping up, you can't buy or teach Hankins experience in a few weeks. For now, McDonald is betting on patience, keeping the veteran in meetings and focused on his rehab. But any fan who's lived through seasons where one single injury tore apart the entire defensive machine, we know just how fragile that balance is. It's like relying on an old, trusty engine part. As long as it works, everything flows. If it breaks, you're stuck improvising and the risk shoots through the roof. What gets me is that this absence isn't just physical, it changes how our opponents look at us. Without Hankins, you can bet rival offenses are going to test the waters, pounding the rock right up the middle to wear down the replacements. And if that starts working, it opens up everything else. The question is, how long can Seattle afford to wait? Because every day Hankins isn't on that field is another day the defensive game plan has to be tweaked. And speaking of tweaks, there's another unit living on a knife's edge that, if it's not managed perfectly right now, could jeopardize the start of the season, the very one that's supposed to carry the load and win us games on offense. Kenneth Walker III isn't practicing in training camp the way a lot of us figured he would, and it's not because he doesn't have the drive or the talent, it's because they're being extremely cautious. McDonald made it clear, we have a plan for Ken and we're sticking to it. And that plan is simple but risky. Preserve the star running back as much as possible so he's 100% healthy for the start of the season, even if it means he loses his rhythm now. Walker is in the last year of his rookie deal, a time when every single game could mean millions for his future. He wants to be the guy, he wants to carry the offense when the game is on the line, but he's up against a recent history that is scary. In 2024, it was an oblique injury right out of the gate, a calf issue late in the year, and an ankle sprain that ended his season. In 2023, a groin strain and another oblique injury. See the pattern? It's not one big catastrophic injury, but this string of nagging issues in his legs and feet that keep him from staying at his peak for a full season. This sore foot this summer is just the latest chapter in this whole physical saga. The dilemma for the Seahawks is obvious. On one hand, saving Walker now might guarantee he's ready for the biggest battles later on. On the other, the lack of reps and training camp intensity could leave him vulnerable to the real shock of the season. It's like keeping a sports car in the garage for months to avoid wear and tear. When you finally decide to floor it, the engine might not respond the way it used to. Veteran fans know we've seen incredible talents get derailed not by the opponent, but by their own bodies. And what makes this even more critical is that Walker is the key to that physical identity Seattle wants to bring back in 2025. Without him in top form, that identity is incomplete, and Geno Smith or Sam Darnold, whoever is leading the offense, is going to have to carry a much heavier load through the air. Right now, the coaching staff is promising that the timeline is on track, but those promises sound way too familiar to anyone who's seen a season go down the drain because of medical optimism. So while the staff keeps a calm face and a confident smile, that one question is just hanging in the air, bugging me. What's going to happen when Walker takes that first real hit in week 1? Because if the answer is a bad one, it's not just the run game that'll suffer. The whole offensive game plan could just fall apart. And if there's one part of this roster that has no room for more uncertainty right now, it's the group that just saw a big shakeup and could redefine the face of our defense for 2025. The Seahawks' latest roster move brought in a name that'll ring a bell for anyone who follows football in Washington State. Alfonso Tuputala, former captain of the Huskies, is now rocking the blue and green of the Emerald City. To make room, Seattle waived Calm Alexander, a cornerback who barely had time to get his cleats dirty. Tuputala arrives with a respectable resume. 3 years as a starter, 221 tackles, 13 for a loss, 8 sacks, and a pick. Plus, he was voted a captain in 2024. Last year alone, he had 81 tackles and was a central piece of a college defense that went all the way to the national title game. This isn't just a feel-good signing. Linebacker is a position with some serious question marks on the current roster. McDonald talked about the internal competition. shouting out Patrick O'Connell and Drake Thomas as guys leading the charge in effort and production stats at camp, while also reminding us that some of the other standouts, like Jamie Sheriff, are still fighting for a real shot at starting. The philosophy is clear. Give guys a chance to grow, but demand they make the most of every single rep. Tupatala might not be an immediate starter, but he offers something rare: deep knowledge of the local scene, a history of leadership, and the physical willingness to contribute in multiple spots. And that fits right into what McDonald wants in year 2 of his defensive system: intensity, discipline, and tactical flexibility. Another interesting angle is the timing of this move. The defense was already getting attention for guys like Mike Morris, a 6'6", 295-pound player who acts as a big end in the scheme, blending the power of a defensive tackle with the mobility of an edge rusher. That kind of versatility is key to stopping the run and still getting pressure on the QB on early downs. Adding Tupatala to the mix gives the Seahawks more depth to adjust their formations without losing aggression. But as always, there's a but. Linebacker is still one of the shakiest spots on this roster, and if the season forces guys who are still developing to step into the line of fire too early, the defense could feel the weight of that inexperience. The optimism is real, but it's a cautious optimism, the kind a veteran fan learns to have after years of seeing prospects get thrown into the fire way too soon. So, as much energy and symbolism as Tupatala brings, the question that just won't go away is whether this defense, as a whole, is ready to handle the heat when the season really gets tough. And that's the thought that ties all of today's news together. So, what do you think, Hawks fans? What's your take on these moves and the kind of impact they'll have on the Seahawks this season? I really want to know what you guys are thinking, so drop a comment below. I'll catch you on the next Seahawks Insider Report.